What is up, party people? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about water polo. If you don't know this about me, I was a water polo player. I was a water polo coach. I coached middle school, high school, and a little bit of college club water polo, and it was a really big part of my life. And what's happened recently has been sort of interesting. Is when I reflect back on my time coaching water polo and playing water polo, I see these lessons that existed at the time, but I may not have recognized them, and I see it differently because my perspective has evolved. I've matured, but my lens has changed, right? I see things differently because I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a small business owner, I'm a marketer, and so when I look back on this experience, the experience hasn't changed, but of course I see it a little bit differently. I imagine this is true for you with various aspects of your life as well. Regardless, I've got a lesson here that has been valuable to me, and I think it'll be valuable to you as well, so I wanted to share it. Now, you don't need to be an expert in water polo, but loosely, here's what I'd like you to know. It takes place in a pool, and on either end of the pool, there are goals. Of course, the object of the game is to score goals on your opponent and to prevent them from scoring on you. So, in the course of a game, you can break it down into roughly 6 chunks, right? So, you are either playing offense, or you are playing defense, or you are transitioning between offense and defense. So there is, transition offense, that's the counterattack, or transition defense, which is counter defense, which is preventing their counterattack, right? And then there's also power plays. So you could be a man up on offense or man down on defense, and that's when a major foul occurs and a member of your team gets kind of put into the penalty box, so to speak, okay? So those are the 6 segments: offense, defense, transition defense, power play offense, and power play defense, right? And that's it. In the course of the game, all 6 of those elements are going to show up at one time or another. Now, it's not always the same balance, right? Sometimes there are more power plays, and sometimes there's more counterattack and more possessions on offense, right? But all 6 of those elements are important parts of the equation. So the reason that I'm telling you all this is because my approach as a coach to designing the season was to break the season up into chunks, and we would focus on those individual aspects of the game for short little sprints. So for the first 2 weeks, we might do nothing but offense, and then the next 2 weeks we might do nothing but defense, and the next 2 weeks we might do nothing but transition offense, and then 2 weeks of transition defense, and then a week of power play offense, and a week of power play defense, or whatever, right? The goal was that when the season ended, when the playoffs came around, or the postseason came around, that we would have all of the elements we needed to play the game, right? And so if you played us early in the season, we may not yet have worked on counterattack. Or if you played us midway through the season, we may not yet have worked on our power play strategies or plays, right? And I'm simplifying it, right? There are definitely more nuances and intricacies to the game, but for our purposes, the goal was to develop each of those muscles, individually, so that at the end, when we needed them, we had all the pieces of the puzzle, and it was just a matter of putting them all together. Let me be clear. I'm not saying that we had offense, figured out, or that we had mastered every possible defensive scenario that we would ever find ourselves in. I don't think that's realistic. In any water polo game, or any game in general, there's an infinite number of ways that the course of the game can play out. And so the goal wasn't to practice every possible scenario we might ever find ourselves in. The goal was to break the game into 6 chunks: offense, defense, transition defense, power play offense, and power play defense, and then to focus on working out our muscle for that individual part of the game. So when the girls found themselves on transition defense, it felt familiar. They knew they had been there before, and they knew what to do, right? And then on offense or power play offense, if we found ourselves in that position, they knew they had worked on this, and they had the muscle. It was just a matter of calling on that part of the season and using that piece of the puzzle in that moment. So the reason that I'm highlighting this is because I think it works really similarly for you and I as we are approaching our marketing strategy. So rather than building, the perfect recipe for a water polo game, what you're doing is you're building what you want your customer journey to look like. And no matter what business you are in, there are some irrefutable truths as to how lifecycle marketing follows or parallels the customer journey. So there will be some element of attract or some element of traffic, right? There will be some element of lead capture. That's where the prospects or customers give you their information. There will be some aspect of follow-up, or at least there should be, and then at some point there should be a transaction, right? A purchase. Either they become a customer or a member or a subscriber. And then there's everything after the purchase, which could be, fulfillment, delivering the product that they bought, following up with them, guiding them to your partner program or to a repeat purchase or to an upsell, right? My point is, this customer journey, the lifecycle marketing strategy that encompasses it, it only has a finite number of parts. And so the goal isn't to figure out everything that could be traffic. It's to figure out what traffic looks like for you. The goal isn't to figure out all of the possible lead gen strategies in the world. It's to figure out what lead gen looks like for your business, right? Do you see where I'm going with this? It's not about mastering everything that is possible in each section. It's about developing what that looks like for your business within the context of your marketing strategy. Okay, so the key takeaway and what I'll leave you with is this. With water polo, there were only 6 segments of the game, and so our approach was to individually focus on developing the muscle we needed for that part of the game. And then when the postseason rolled around, we had all of the pieces of the puzzle, and all we needed to do was put them together, right? With your marketing strategy, it sort of works the same way. The elements of the game are the lifecycle marketing stages. They all exist whether or not you have planned for them. If you think about it, your customer has a journey that spans the whole lifecycle marketing spectrum. The only question is, what have you, as a business, done to develop the muscle in each of those individual sections, right? I think it's an Aristotle quote that says, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And that's true for water polo. It's also true for marketing strategy. What's more important than your individual traffic strategy or your individual lead capture strategy is recognizing and maintaining the understanding that those individual steps fit within this overarching comprehensive customer journey. And so if you keep that as your baseline, if you recognize that everything fits into one of those stages, it becomes a game of just developing the individual muscles and making sure that they work in concert with one another. So hopefully that's been useful for you. I've really enjoyed reflecting on my water polo experience with my new entrepreneurial lens. And if you want more of this stuff, there should be a link below this video to an article I wrote with 3 marketing lessons I learned from water polo. Peace.